Hello, everybody. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. It's Lisa Baker, and I am here for the Money Talk tonight. This one's going to be a great one. We are talking about money and relationships, money and marriage. And I get to have this conversation this evening with my husband and life partner, Clarence Baker Jr. He will be on momentarily. So I am just super excited for this conversation, you guys. If you're out there, wave, say hello, let me hear you. If you have questions about money in general, if you have questions about relationships and money, want to hear about that? Hey, Dr. Lester, I see you out there. Welcome. Thank you for always being so supportive. I appreciate you. I'm glad that you are on tonight. Mr. Baker will be with us momentarily, and I'm just excited for this conversation. This is one of those topics that people don't talk enough about, and they really should, especially before you join this life. You probably should have conversations with them about money and understanding their money values, etc. There he is, everybody, the one, only Clarence Baker Jr. Hello, love.
Hey, babe, how you doing? Hello, everyone.
I am great. I'm even better now that you're on the call, the line, the live with me. So I was just sharing that the part of the reason why we have these money talks is because we don't talk enough about this, especially people going into relationships. It often gets overlooked. And so we're going to talk about that, answer some of the questions that people might have out there. So if you're on and you know somebody needs to be part of this, tag them, tell them, come on in here and get into this conversation. Dr. Lester says that she's my number one fan besides my husband. Thank you, Dr. Lester. I appreciate you. So Clarence, Mr. Baker, why don't you start by telling the people a little bit about you? What do you do? Maybe let's start there because everybody wants to know that. What does he do?
I'm.
I am. You were pausing.
Say what?
I hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I hear you
I
now. Go
work for the
ahead.
federal government in Washington, D.C. for the Department of Health and Human Services. I work at headquarters in the Office of Human Resources, HR, Information Technology as the director.
Awesome. So I'm sure people heard that, and what they know is you work for the government. That means you got one of them good jobs. That's what that means.
Some days, yeah, some days. You're right.
All right. Someone's saying they're hearing some feedback. Hopefully that goes away, and that everything comes across clearly and crisply. So one of the things that I always like to begin with and talking to people is about their money mindset, about their beliefs and their values, because what you think about money, what you think about anything really shapes your values. Now, I know that your parents were married for over 60 years. And so you likely seeing them together and how they handle money, have some thoughts about that. So tell us, what did you learn from watching your parents and how they handled money?
That's a very good question because I think that a lot of your, at least your initial values, your foundational values, come from what you saw growing up and through your formative years. And so, my parents were very big on save, 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 almost to the point of living as though they didn't have a lot of money, but they never, so it was save, 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 save. And my father would always say no to anything that was going to come outside of saving. And so what my mother would do is when she needed something, she'd go get it. All right. Because she knew he was going to say no. And so they didn't invest. They didn't make their money work for them. It was save, save, save. And because my father knew my father had this mindset that my mother would spend the money if she saw it, and both of them worked. Um, so he would bring money in enough to take care of the home, the bills, food, everything. Okay, and then he would stash money away just in case. Okay, and my mother never knew about that. So I grew up being the only male child with five sisters. I grew up thinking that's probably not good. And so in my formative years, what I thought was everything should be shared. Okay, so that's what I
Right. So
did. Everything is
yeah.
shared.
So what you're saying, I hear you saying that. So your both of your parents worked, so they were, making money and all of that. Their focus was on saving, so maybe they were a little bit frugal, and your dad though was kind of hiding money. That's what I heard
Correct. Correct.
from your mom. And so from that, you're like, no, this
No,
is
this is
not
not
the way.
correct. That is
So
correct.
we are getting some feedback. I'm hearing it too. I'm not sure what's happening there with the phone. So I'm going to make sure that I have my speaker and volume turned down so that we're not competing with each other. All right. So that shaped how you viewed money. You said, hey, I'm going to be more open. This stashing money is probably not a great idea.
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
And then my values changed a little bit um, based on relationships that I had been in over the years, where it was just the opposite. And so for me, when I met you, I had said in my mind that I was not, just based on my history, I had not, I was not going to share nothing. Nobody was going to handle my money. Nobody but me. And I was going to win or lose based on my own decision making.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that was the original foundation, and then through relationships and over the years, it changed.
Yeah. And so this is for both of us, not our first marriage. We've both been married previously. And so as you're saying, like being in relationships and what you experience in those relationships, especially if you go through a divorce, which can be very expensive, costly financially, but also there's a high emotional cost to that as well.
Hmm.
And it can shape and change really how you think
Hmm.
about money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So your thought was at first being open.
Being very open, sharing everything. Most people say 50-50. I say 100-100. How much money is coming in, how much money is going out, checking accounts, credit cards, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
Then
and
because
that
of
that was my
relationships, you changed that and said, I'm not sharing anything.
no, no. Well, not that I wouldn't share. It's just that all decisions were going to come through me about my funds. They were my funds.
So you weren't
Um,
sharing the decision making.
correct, correct. I was in situations where um, individuals didn't share that same philosophy
Mm-hmm.
of sharing and decision making together, et cetera. So what you find yourself doing is going into protection mode,
Oh, that's
survival mode.
good. Yeah. So you're trying to
Okay,
protect yourself from
correct.
potential harm because someone doesn't share your values. And I think that is such a great point that if you're going to join your life to someone else's, being a relationship in whatever form, making sure that you and that individual share the same values is so
Hmm.
important, especially as it comes to values around money. So
Correct.
a lot of people don't even talk about money when they're dating and getting, in the courtship process, if you will. But I feel like we talked a lot about that. You want to
We did.
tell the people a little bit about our approach when we were dating.
That's a very good question. I think before um, I think there was a process, of course. You know, we just didn't jump in and say, "Hey, we want to get married." So there was a process that was applied. But I think that if I do recall, when we talked about becoming exclusive, and one of the things that we immediately did was share it. We shared everything. We shared credit report. We shared 401ks. If there was 401ks, we share accounts balances. So we shared the whole financial picture when we were dating. And I remember that vividly because I was used to sharing, but not sharing everything.
Yeah,
And
and it's
so
true. It's a
everything was shared.
process, and I someone types like no secrets, and
No
it is a
secrets.
process, and because you really do want to know what you're getting yourself into, and that way each party has the opportunity to make an informed decision.
Correct. Correct. You know exactly what you're getting into financially, at least from a financial standpoint. You know exactly what you're getting into and not getting into. You know, so by doing that, you still have a choice.
Yeah, you have a choice. You have a choice to decide, hey, am I in or am I out?
Right.
Or if I'm going to be in, what shifts, changes maybe need to be made so that I can be fully in?
Correct. And I think when people are, well, I know when people are, you know, whether they're dating, whether they're engaged, they make some assumptions, and I think that's one of the biggest black holes when it comes to your finances is entertainment, going out, dinners, trips, etc. That stuff all adds up. Um, so if you have to be you have to be accountable for those things,
Mhm.
and even in dating you have to be accountable. You know, again, you what you share is make sure that your money has an assignment. Each dollar has an assignment.
Mhm.
That doesn't change because you're dating.
Right. So if you're going to be dating someone, you need to have a budget. You need to put dating as a line item in your budget and plan for how much you can afford to spend for that. So we talked about all of those kinds of things.
Hmm.
How was that comfortable, uncomfortable? How did that cause you to feel?
Um, I was very uncomfortable with
Very
all of it.
uncomfortable. Okay. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us
I was
more.
very well. Understand, I was ready to share to a certain level. Um, I was definitely ready to share that, and I remember right after we got engaged. So we got engaged December 31st of 2019. The first week of January 2020, you sent me a spreadsheet, okay, outlining debts, assets, um, you know, checking accounts, credit cards. I mean, just everything. I think it had maybe 3 or 4 tabs on it.
Oh, come on now. It might have. That may or may not be
Yeah,
true.
it had
I
three or
think
four
it
tabs on
was, though, seriously, this personal financial statement that one I use with some of my clients when I'm coaching them around finances. But this one had maybe some extra tabs because it was going to be used for
it.
working with a
Estate
financial
planning and
planner.
right, financial planning and estate planning. So again, I think that we can't move forward if we're living in the past. And I can remember it took me 4 or 5 months to fill out that spreadsheet because, you know, over the past, you know, almost 20 years, I had promised myself I was not going to open up my finances and that type of stuff to anyone. And
Mm.
so it took me 4 or 5 months to get through, to work through that, just to work through the spreadsheet. And then after the spreadsheet was done, um, there was an appointment to meet the financial planner, etc. And that was very, very uncomfortable for me. So now I've worked through, from an emotional standpoint, I've worked through sharing with my soon to be wife, and now I got to talk to other people as well. And so that was very emotional for me,
Mm.
very, very emotional. But
And
it
the
was very
emotion
helpful, and I
from
had to
your, I'm sorry, babe, that emotion that came from your previous stance that you took, which says, I am
history.
not opening up. I'm not, that
Correct.
history was in effect. So how did you overcome that history in order? Because obviously you did share that. We did go through that process, but what was it that made it worth working through to overcome that?
It was a couple of things. Number one, I personally, I'm a person of faith, as you well know, and I had to really pray about it, and ask God to help me through that, and then trust God that I believe that you were the right person for me, and trust God that you were the right person, and I could trust you with that. Also, I thought about it and I said, if I'm ever going to move forward, financially, relationship, not being stuck in the past, etc., because of, I call it financial trauma, um, you got to get over this. Okay. This is totally different. You've never done this before, which was good. It had only been conversation around certain things. So it 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 took, from an emotional and spiritual level, to get through it.
Yes, prayed about it, worked through the emotions, worked through it
Hmm.
spiritually, because I heard you say really part of it was faith, your faith in God, but then also trusting that you had the right partner.
Hmm.
That, hey, if God put us together, we can work through this thing together. It was going to be okay.
Correct.
You got past that, but then as you mentioned earlier, then there was the next hurdle, because it was beyond sharing it with just me. I then said, hey, we're going to take this and we're going to be meeting with my financial planners.
my
So,
my financial planner, right? And I think, when we opened up our finances, etc., I think, the one of the things that helped me was, basically, when I saw your financial portfolio, and I went, okay, she knows what she's doing.
mm,
Obviously, I've been doing something wrong, and she knows what she's doing. So that was, I'm not going to say it was the icing on the cake, but it definitely, promoted my willingness, to open up.
mhm. Yeah, I think that's really a good point too. It's like sometimes recognizing that someone else may have the information, the skill, the experience that can help us, and being willing to trust somebody to do that.
Right. I think, when you are in a relationship, especially being married, you must admit to yourself, my better half, my other half, has more experience in this area than I do, and I have to let you lead in that area.
Mhm.
Okay. And so yeah, that was a real emotional, spiritual awakening, for about, I would say, 7 to 8 months. Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
But you overcame it, thank God, because that would have been a deal breaker for me if you hadn't. So so thankfully you got
As
over that.
as
Um, no, but because that was important to me, in all sincerity, to be on the same page with you, knowing that we were getting married, because in my previous marriage, that wasn't the case. We had very different values around money, and I saw the challenges that caused. And as you said, it created some financial trauma, and I didn't
right.
want to have that again. And so we worked through that together, as we did with many other things. In fact, I'll share, we went through a book, and this was a book that Clarence suggested. It was called 1001 Questions to Answer Before Getting Married. And the book is literally 1001 questions. And we worked through all of them that were relevant for us. Some of them did not apply to our situation, but the ones that did, we went through all of them. And so that helped. We had a lot of conversation, very open about many things, including money. So now when we were engaged in going through this process, you came to the relationship with some debts and some things to work through. And so had you, before we got engaged, before we got married, what was your approach to managing your finances?
Well, it wasn't one every dollar having an assignment. It
It was
was
not.
no, it was not.
Okay.
It was nowhere near that. It was getting debt free and getting my credit score up. So I came into the relationship. You know, my credit score was over 700. It was over 720. But I think it was other. I had some other debts like income tax debt, and I think credit card debt. That was
Student
really
loan.
that was really the most outstanding, right?
Mhm.
And so what I learned about that was it's just not getting your credit score up,
Yeah.
right? As you know, a lot of people just concentrate on the credit score. It's
Mhm.
not just getting your credit score up and having, you know, paying off those bills that are on the you know, on your credit report. It's the whole financial portfolio is something way more than that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even close to that.
Mhm. So if you think about the things that you mentioned, right? You had some tax debt, maybe credit cards, student loans, etc., and you were working to pay off your debt, but
Hmm.
mainly from the perspective of one, you wanted to get your credit score, which you had a great credit score, and
Hmm.
so then you were focused on paying off the debt. Did you have a sense of, did you know for sure, like when you would be finished paying off your debt before we started talking about finances?
Well,
Did
it's
you have a
interesting.
debt-free date?
I I did have you know, let's say the student loan. The student loan would have been paid off. Matter of fact, I think it was paid off right after we got married. So I had a timetable for that. But the income tax debt, I would have retired. Um, I would have retired being in debt to the federal government. It would have taken me about 10 years or more to pay them off, just because of things that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so. Number one, I think that's highly important to understand when you're looking at your whole financial portfolio, not only about what money is coming in, what money is going out, but long-term care, um, you know, insurance, investments, etc. When you're looking at all of that, you know, your portfolio, it's it's important to understand the whole picture and to do research, as well. If something you don't understand, do research on it. And I come to find out I I would have had debt every year with the federal government just because of the way that I was filing my taxes. And I was
Mm-hmm.
filing my taxes on time every year, et cetera, et cetera. But one little faux pas was creating a debt every year. And it wasn't until we sat down and we went over those things and started investigating, well, why do you have all of this debt? Um, that we were able to correct that and
Mm-hmm.
then move forward in resolving it. So it
Yeah.
would have been at least 10 years or more, at least that.
So it would have taken at least 10 years, and then may potentially longer because there was that error that was happening with the taxes that you didn't really even realize was an error. You just knew that you kept owing the government money every year. But
Years.
then
Hmm.
you allowed yourself to be vulnerable, as you shared, worked through the process, got over the past thinking, in order for us to come together and work on our finances. And then this is my area of expertise, right? I spent 30 years in financial services. This is one of the things I'm really passionate about, and I teach around this. And so you allowed yourself to let me lead in this area because this is my strength, just as I allow you to lead in other areas where you're stronger and more knowledgeable than I am. And that makes us better together. And so I think that is awesome. Now, tell the people, because they want to know, where are you now with your finances? What happened as a result of you praying, getting over the past, allowing yourself to be helped? Where are you now?
Well, we're debt free. I think I made after we got all the taxes taken care of, et cetera. I think after it took us about 7 months to work through all of that. But I think I made a comment one time. I said, it's really nice to see money come in and stay versus money coming in and money going out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's wonderful now. um, you know, I can leave a legacy for my kids, through estate planning. Um, you know, we got wills in place, we got long-term care, we have, all the things that go along with estate planning to make sure that if I leave, you're taken care of. If you leave, I'm taken care of. Our kids are taken care of. Our grandkids are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so,
think that's awesome, babe. And
yeah.
I don't want to skip over that part just for those who maybe joined late and didn't hear it. Let's go back and catch them up. We were talking about sharing about your finances in the dating process and being open and allowing each other to see, where we were, and you working through your past beliefs and experiences around money where you had said, listen, I'm not letting anybody manage my money ever again because of
Hmm.
what you described as past financial trauma. But you worked through that, got over it. You had some debt coming into the relationship, and particularly with some of it, you said it would have taken you 10 years to pay off that debt with the process that you were using. But allowing yourself to be vulnerable, letting me lead, because that's the area in which I'm strong. We paid off that debt within, what did you say, 7 months?
7 months, yeah.
What would have taken 10 years
Hmm.
only took 7 months.
Correct, correct. But
So
and again, it was part of my financial maturation process that I had to go through and overcome. Because if you think, I tell people this all the time. If you think about our life experiences and our traumas, it usually involves people.
well, yeah, people are generally a
Yeah, it
problem.
usually involves people. All right. And so we can stay stuck, so I'll give an example. We met we started working on this in 2020. So that means that I was probably stuck in 2003.
So you
Okay.
spent 17 years stuck financially.
Right. You're trying to, and I'm sure some of the listeners out there, and who are ever listening, you go through divorce, you go through breakup, etc., and you can be devastated financially, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to work through that. And sometimes, depending on how deep you're in and how long you've been together, you can, it can take you anywhere from 5 to 10 years to recover.
Mm-hmm.
And so the faster you work through that and get unstuck, and a lot of times we don't work to get unstuck. Okay. And so,
Yeah.
coming into the relationship with you from a financial ideology perspective, you were dealing with a Clarence from 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to understand that and be able to work with that. And, I believe that God sent me the right one because you were very gentle with me. You were very gentle, especially with that spreadsheet. You gave me two gentle reminders, and you didn't say anything else about it, etc. And it was great. It was great, and that's it was those positive things. Nothing was negative about it. Everything was positive about it. Everything that I experienced was positive about it, and it afforded me the opportunity to go ahead and get unstuck and move to 2020.
Yeah, that's awesome. Getting unstuck. So that is so key. And a lot of what keeps us stuck is our own beliefs and values. And those beliefs and values then translate into our behaviors. And so we just end up perpetuating the same things over again and staying stuck. So I love what you said. Like, you got to get past the past, let that go and move forward to have the future that you want. And so now, as you said,
Correct.
we're debt free, and not only are we debt free, but we now have a plan, a financial plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was that something that you had done before, any previous, like estate planning and those kinds of things?
I had not done that before. No, I had not. I had not done that before. I don't think um, my parents had not done that, and again, I was partly modeling what my parents had done. My mindset was make sure your kids are taken care of, get them through college, and make sure that set them up for that they can be successful, and then you go ahead and you live your life. My parents didn't go that far. If you went off to college, they would support you the best that they could.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my parents didn't pay for my bachelor's and master's degree, and nor did they help.
Yeah.
So, their goal was to help get you through high school, and then whatever you wanted to do after that was up to you.
Then you on your own from
And
there.
then you're on your own.
That's
And
awesome.
times
Yeah.
change. They
Yeah,
change.
but
Times
to
change.
move past those beliefs and that you came by from the family that you were in and from the experiences that you had post that. So I'm just going to ask you some quick yes or no questions.
Okay.
Okay. Prenup, yes or no? That's supposed to be quick, Clarence. Come on
That
with it.
that's
Yes
it's
or no?
it's that's not a simple answer. It's
Okay,
not.
let me make it
But
simple. Did we have a prenup? Yes or no?
we did not have a prenup.
Okay. Shared bank accounts? Yes or no?
Whatever is going to make your relationship successful, whatever is going to
Oh,
prosper your relationship.
yeah. Okay. That sounds like a maybe.
No, well, let me explain both of those just real briefly. We are of a different generation. Okay, we are living in 2022. It is not our grandparents' generation. It is not the times of our parents. Okay, and when it comes to a prenup, divorce is devastating. It is absolutely devastating. And depending on the divorce and the two people in the divorce, it could start you back -20.
What do you
Uh,
mean by negative? Set you back negative?
-20. So what
20
normally?
years, 20,000? What do you
No,
mean?
no. What I'm saying is, um, it doesn't reset you to zero financially.
Ah, okay.
Financially, you don't go to zero.
You become, it makes you negative. I
It
get it.
makes you negative, especially if there's kids involved, you're the non-custodial parent, etc. Okay. And
Welcome, Miss
so,
Virtue.
huh?
No, I was just saying, welcome, Miss Virtue just joined the conversation.
Hi, Miss
So it
Virtue.
sets you back.
Right. It sets you back. So, um, I don't, so ideolo- the ideology is a prenup um, won't set you back. It protects assets, etc. So both people come out of it as clean as you, as clean as, not saying that you don't lose something, but you don't go to -10.
Gotcha. You said it can protect you and keep you from
Right.
being at a loss. So
And
maybe if the people feel like they need to have that. Welcome, WF Lester. Glad that you are
right.
with us.
And I
So
would and I would also add in a marriage, um, part of that marriage is business.
yeah,
Yeah, part of it, there is a business stream, a business component in the marriage. And so when that breaks off, when that part breaks off, what do you do? And so I would say do what is best for the marriage. Okay. So we talk about, the prenup. I say, what are we doing to stay together, to reinforce and enforce the marriage to stay together so we don't talk about a prenup? So, but, people have to do what they feel comfortable with.
Mhm.
And the second question, bank accounts and that type of stuff. I know when you and I, got together and, we share everything. Um, One of the things that we did talk about was, how much money does it take, you know, to make an independent decision about something before we have to come back to the table. All
Right.
right.
We can spend a certain amount and not have to say, hey, can I spend this? But if it's going to go over a certain dollar amount or threshold, then maybe that's a conversation we need to have.
Correct. And
Hmm.
so I think you have to do what's best for the marriage and what both people feel comfortable for the marriage. And if one person is uncomfortable with it, then that's an area of negotiation.
So there
Not
is,
just,
you
well,
said
I
the
want it
business
this
side of
way.
marriage, and there's some negotiations that need to happen. And it really is
Absolutely.
about, and there is absolute truth to that. It's about coming to an agreement and understanding of what's going to work, and so that you can keep the peace. And it's having those discussions up front and continuing to have those discussions throughout the relationship as things
Hmm.
change, because finances, money problems, money worries, money argues is still at the top of the list of of things that couples fight about, and that causes them to have a divorce, because a lot of times they come into it with different backgrounds. I saw the question earlier, would I say, or would we say that we were shaped, or that we were a product of the environment that we grew up in? And I would say absolutely yes.
Hmm.
In my household growing up, my mom, when I was growing up, my mom didn't work at that time. My dad was working, and I would describe my dad as being the kind of man that say, I pay the cost to be the boss. So he made the money, he paid all the bills because my mom didn't work. But also my mother did not, she was functionally illiterate. So she didn't really even know how to write checks, pay bills, some of those things. Again, very different time period. So my dad took care of all of that. So when my dad passed away, my mom was really at a loss. She did not know how to do any of those things. So that meant my brother, myself, others had to step in to kind of fill in that gap that my dad had played. So she never knew how much anything cost, didn't have to write a check or pay a bill. So it was very one-sided in that way. But because that's what I saw, I was determined that that was not going to be me. I was not going to be my mother. So when I got married the first time, I was like, I want to control the money. I'm going to write the checks. I'm going to pay the bills, because I am not going to be my mother. And
Hmm.
so, yes, I was absolutely shaped by
Right.
my environment. So just like you had to make a shift in us coming together, I had to make a shift as well to realize that I don't have to be in control of everything, that I can trust. But what allowed that is that I was sure that we had the same values about things, that we had talked about it in advance, and we had made agreements about how we would handle certain things. And I am with you. It's what works best for your relationship, because what Clarence and I do may not at all work for you guys. We are on the same accounts, so there's no account that has just my name on it or just his name. We're on everything together. We're the beneficiaries for each other on many things. So again, that's how we chose to do it, but that may or may not work for you. So I say, get an agreement with your partner about what's going to work best for your relationship, and keep the peace in your household.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, um, your that foundation that you grew up with, I I call that your original foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's your original. It's just like building a house. Sometimes they'll knock the house down and they don't break up the original foundation. They just put another foundation on top of it. And
Mm.
so sometimes that original foundation is not the foundation that's going to work for you now. And so you have to change, but also realize that, and it's a God component in here. Make sure you got the right one.
Make sure you got the right one. I would say, that there's no science to this, by the way, people. This is just Lisa Baker talking. I would say that it's 90% choice, and 10% is the hard work that you got to do to make it work with the person
Hmm.
that you chose. That's just my math. Somebody else may have a
Hmm.
different number out there. Okay, let us know, because we're going to wrap up soon. If you have questions that you want us to answer for you
Hmm.
about money and relationships, or about money in general, we would be happy to answer them for you while we are here live. So we talked about prenuptial agreements. We talked about shared bank accounts. We've talked about being open and sharing everything, getting an agreement in your household about what is going to work for you. So, Clarence, what would be your advice to a couple? Let's just say they are, they are newly in a relationship. They're committed to each other in a new relationship. What advice, maybe 2 or 3 things that you would say to them based on your experiences about money? What would you counsel them if this is an area of concern for them?
That's a very good question, because I have like maybe 20
I
tips,
know,
but
that's why I said 2 to 3, because I know you.
and so
Give me the choicest ones, the
okay,
best one.
I'm going to be okay, very 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 candid. I would say first, pray about it, pray about it, pray about it, because praying and meditating, what it does is we have a certain frequency that happens throughout the day, and it gets us on God's frequency.
Get on
And
God's frequency. I like that. So that's number one.
it
Get
gets
on
it
God's
gets
frequency.
it gets us on God's frequency, and it opens us up to hearing what He has to say to us. And I also think it opens us up to looking at what's reality, what's really real versus what isn't. And we have when we get in something new, something bright and shiny, we have a tendency to tell ourselves a story. Okay,
Okay.
so I
That's
think praying and
number one. Get
meditating
on God's
keeps you
frequency.
grounded.
Pray about it. What's number
Right.
2?
Number 2 is don't shy away from the tough decisions. I mean, tough um, questions and discussions.
Mm.
Don't shy away from that, because what you're doing is you are betting everything on it. You're betting your life on it. You're betting the future on it. You're betting your finances on it. You're betting everything on it. So don't shy away from those tough discussions. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
ask those questions, and if that person doesn't want to engage with you in those discussions, then either they're not ready or they're not the one.
Mm. They're not ready, or they're not the one. So how long do I wait to discover whether it's just they're not quite ready or they're not the one?
Um, okay, so that would be question 2A, and I believe that your intuition tells you.
Mm.
Okay, um, it's always a choice. It's always a choice, but I truthfully believe that you might want to tell yourself a story and say, oh well, it'll get better, but you know, you know,
Yeah, I think that's really good, because
you
so
know.
often our gut instinct, especially if we're praying and we're seeking God. I mean, and not everyone that's listening to us may be a person of faith or a Christian, but I
Mm-hmm,
think we all have faith in something, and we
mm-hmm.
all have this instinct and intuition that tells us something. But so often we ignore that,
We
or
ignore it.
make excuses. Well, it's just, well, maybe it's this, but we know. And so
Right.
I think that's really good. So praying, meditating, getting on
Mm-hmm,
God's frequency,
mm-hmm.
not shying away from those crucial conversations, from the
Have
difficult
those crucial
conversations.
conversations.
Yeah.
I'll give an example. I was in, decades, more than a decade ago, I was in a relationship and she never wanted to show me her credit report. Okay. Well, that was a red flag. All
Yeah.
right. And she never did. Never wanted to show me her credit report. That was a red flag. And eventually, yeah, the relationship dissolved.
Yeah, something
So
being hidden there. Hello, Levon Morris. I see you. I'm so glad that you joined. We're talking about marriage and money. We've shared a lot of good stuff. What questions do you have for us? Anything that you want to know, we are happy to answer your questions because I think it's so important that people get these questions answered. I love what Dr. Lester just said. Like, yeah, as Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time.
mhm.
Yes, believe
It
them.
doesn't,
Don't
and it doesn't
be
take
scared
long
of
for people to show you who they are. It's not long.
that.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
not a year down the road, 18 months down the road. My
Mhm.
favorite commercial is the Eminem commercial where the one Eminem is holding his breath and he,
Yeah.
he's holding his breath and he's blue, but
Uh-huh.
the other M&Ms notice that he's not breathing, and then
Right.
finally he has to let it go, and he's actually red.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's a great example. People cannot behave inconsistent to who they truly are, but for so
Correct.
long. And so I like to say, give time, time.
Hmm.
If you give time, a little time, the truth will come out. Everything will show up.
And
All
th-
right. You have
and then
shared your advice
the
for
third tip,
I'm
because
sorry,
we
go
have
ahead.
two and 2A. That was the follow on the 2A, and then three would be, once you've done one and two, you and your partner come up with a plan. Sit down, have the discussions, come up with a plan, agree on it, and move forward. I think what a lot of just from a spiritual perspective, a lot of couples do not understand the power they have when they become a couple, when they are one. Okay, when you are one accord, you are married, you have the power to accomplish anything that you set your mind to.
Yeah.
Anything,
Awesome. Yeah.
anything. And so, come up with a plan and follow the plan. That would be my advice. Don't shy away from the tough discussions, especially around finances. Um, and if I could just add one more, if you and your partner are short in a particular area, you don't have the knowledge base in that area, find the knowledge base, find the person who can help you. If you're not good around financial planning or you need education around financial planning, find someone who can do financial planning, okay, and get educated about it. Find someone who can help with investments. Find
Yeah.
that person, grow your network
Mhm.
of people for sure.
Yeah, and that is 4+ for those who are playing the math game at home. I asked him for 2 or 3. He gave us 4. But that's my husband. He goes above and beyond. Don't hate. Listen, I think that it's an excellent point. I am in the 3rd week of teaching the Grow Finances course. It has been phenomenal. A lot of great testimonies coming in from people who are following the Grow Finances process. For those who aren't familiar, Grow stands for get out of debt, retain more of your income, organize and protect your assets so that you can walk in wealth. And this is an area of strength for me. And I am really passionate about helping other people to get their money right, but especially for people of color, especially for African Americans, because we are so far behind our Caucasian brothers and sisters when it comes to finances. Our wealth, the average wealth of a white household is 10 times more than that of a black household. That shouldn't be. When we talk about salary and earnings, again, we fall short, but it doesn't have to be. So we're sharing these topics, we're having these conversations so that you can get the help that you need. If you missed registering for Grow Finances, okay, you missed it. Don't miss it again. You can get on the wait list. You'll find the link in my bio where you can get on the wait list for the next Grow Finances course so that you can get your money right. Now, that being said, love, I'm going to allow you to have the last word. anything else you want to say to the people about money, about marriage and money before we end our time tonight?
Just and thank you, sweetie. She's doing that because she knows how I am. So I really appreciate that. Excuse me. Understand that money is a living, breathing entity, and you can make it work for you or not. Okay, but money was put here to work for us, not work against us. Okay, that's number one. Number two, as in a marriage and relationship, especially a marriage, but even in relationships, um, the power of one. When two people become one, you have power over everything. And once you realize that you have power over everything, you can accomplish anything. God has set it up that way where you can accomplish everything. And then last, and then last but not least, um, agree. My father used to say this all the time to me: agree. Okay, just agree. Now, that's not saying you lose yourself. That's not saying you're better, but sometimes, in this particular case, Lisa got way more experience than I do in this particular area. And when two people come together, they both come with strengths and they both come with weaknesses. This is Lisa's strength. I would be, I would be, it would be insane for me to not hand this over to Lisa to let her lead this. And again, it's not letting her lead it, it's me being a team player. Okay. That's what it is. That's what a marriage is. You're a team. I grew up in a household where my mom did work. She worked nights. She worked mids. So guess who woke us up in the morning? Dad. Guess who cooked breakfast in the morning? Dad. Guess who did my sister's hair? All five girls. Dad. Everybody got a ponytail, but you didn't go out of the house looking any kind of way. All right. So that was, just from a man's perspective, that was my example of what a father is. You're a team. Okay.
Mm.
And so what is it going to take to be a team financially? Okay. Because once you become a team, there are great things that lay ahead.
That
That's all.
is awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Randy Best, I see you joined. Thank you for joining us. You joined us at the tail end, but we are glad you are here. So I think those were excellent, excellent points, love. If I just recap them again for those who just joined, what I heard you say is number one is to recognize the power that there is in unity. So come together and agree. And you said that there's nothing that we can't accomplish if we are
Nothing,
working together. It's a team, it's a
nothing.
partnership. And on any team, we have multiple players. They have different roles based on their strengths and their expertise. And so you said, I like to say it this way: let the experts do what the experts do. So Clarence is expert at some things, and I let him lead, and that he runs those areas, and then he allows me to lead and run the areas where I am more of an expert, but we are better together because of that. And so know that. And you said earlier, and if you're not good at something, if you know you're struggling in an area, ask for help. Find someone who can help you in those areas. I think that is awesome and a great place to end. So again, thank you all for tuning in and joining the Money Talk. We'll be back next month, the first Tuesday of the month, talking about money again. I think my guest will be Marlena Cole. I'm calling her out. So now that I've said it out loud, she has to say yes to me. That's my trick, y'all. Thank you for joining. Have a great evening, everybody.